This is a productivity hack that will allow me to do so many different things with the same 24 hours that everyone has. Do you ever sit down in the middle of your workday in your corporate job and just have an absolute existential crisis thinking, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Am I happy? What is work-life balance even? Being a competitive athlete, working a corporate job, can you do both? And the answer is yes, and today let's find out how. Hello friends of the internet. This topic is probably one of the highest requested topics I've gotten on both my YouTube channel as well as on my Instagram page. The question of the century is, how do I balance figure skating and figure skating competitively with a corporate job? For those of you who have been following me for a while now, both here on YouTube as well as on Instagram, you probably know that I am a current competitive adult figure skater and I'm also a former competitive volleyball player. But the tips I'm going to share with you in this video will be applicable to athletes of all sports, all ages, and all backgrounds who work a corporate job. The harsh reality of it all is many people, me included, have to work a corporate job in order to make ends meet financially. This is especially the case when figure skating is such an expensive sport. Very easy to say that everyone should just pursue a career in what they're passionate about, but sometimes you also do just have to pay the bills. Given these conditions, how do we still maximize our own happiness and sense of fulfillment and find balance in our day-to-day lives? To provide a bit of context as to what my corporate job actually is, I work in the management consulting industry, which is just about as corporate as it gets. I've been in the industry for about 4 years now after graduating from the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in business and economics. I know, very exciting stuff. For those of you who do not know what consulting or management consulting is, because I'm going to be honest, it is a bit of a black box, I do have a video up on my channel that is a day in the life of a management consultant in New York City. If you want more insight and detail into what I actually do on a day-to-day when I'm not on the ice training, then please watch that video. I'll link that down below. The one thing I will say is that it is a job that has quite the demanding amount of hours that sometimes may be quite unpredictable. Rather than your typical corporate 9 to 5, my hours are typically more of a 9 to 8 on a good day. On bad days, it could be like a 8 to 11 p.m. kind of situation. You really just never know. On top of that, I actually pretty much do also have a third job, and that is being a content creator and making YouTube videos for all of you guys, because it does take quite a bit of time and effort to edit, film, produce all these videos and putting them out there in the internet. Whenever I'm thinking about balancing two things that are very important, there's two factors that I typically consider. So number one is, how do we influence our external environment to support our passions outside of work? External environment includes your workplace, your coworkers, your boss, your team, everything that is more so outside of your control when determining work-life balance. And number two is how we frame our internal mindset and manage our productivity internally. I know this is quite the consultant of me to start off with this framework. The following 5 tips I'm going to share with you all will cover upon both aspects that I just mentioned. From the 4 years of experience, managing and balancing both has truly helped me personally a lot. Alright, so let's start external. Tip number one is blocking off sacred time. Just as how we have to be really diligent in scheduling meetings for work, we should also be diligent in scheduling time for things that matter to us as athletes. Of course, this may look differently depending on your job or your sport, and the idea is to look at both calendars and find a consistent and regular time that you can adhere to and block off in your calendar to dedicate to just doing your sport. For me, the best time to go skating is in the morning before work. One, my sport, figure skating, only really has practice sessions only really early in the morning, so there are no sessions after work for me to go to. And the second reason is my job's end time is a bit more unpredictable than its start time. Depending on what I get from my clients, there are days where I am lucky and I finish work and can get off by 6 p.m. But there's also days where it just kind of keeps going and going and going, and sometimes I might be working until 11 p.m. A little bit harder for me to schedule anything after work on a weekday. So typically the time that I block off for myself to skate in the morning is 6 a.m. to around 8:30 to 9 a.m. Also do think generally it does help to practice your sport or whatever your passion is before you start your workday rather than after. I often find that when I put off things until after work, the day just gets ahead of me. I'll be at work and I'll think to myself, I'll go work out after I send this one last email. And that one last email ends up becoming 2, 3, 4 more emails. Before you know it, it's the end of the day, you still have not worked out, you're probably exhausted and probably don't feel like doing it anymore. Number 2 is communicating your needs to your coworker or team and advocating for your own needs. This one goes hand in hand with tip number 1. If you set a regular time that you might be out of pocket, it also helps you better communicate and helps your team or coworkers understand when you're available and when you're not available. When it comes to working a corporate job, most of the time you're going to have to advocate for your own needs because there is not going to be a second person who will do that for you. The unfortunate part about a lot of companies, I'm not speaking about all, who will just simply assume that you are available to their discretion. Most of the time when I start a new project or work with new people at my company, I will often have a level setting conversation with them to just let them know that mornings are sacred to me and that's the only real time block that I am asking to be respected completely whenever possible. Depending on the company that you work at and your company culture, it might sometimes feel uncomfortable sharing something so personal with your work. In those situations, you don't necessarily have to provide so much detail or context. You can just frame it around personal time or time spending something that is really personally important to me. Depending on how comfortable I feel with the team, sometimes I share my skating journey with them, other times I don't, and it's just generalized as personal time. At the end of the day, what you do outside of your working hours on your personal time does not need to be shared and detailed with your work unless you want to. So now moving more to the internal side. Tip number 3 is time boxing. This is a productivity hack that will allow me to do so many different things with the same 24 hours that everyone has. Time boxing is truly as simple as it sounds. Before you start a given task, you give yourself a completion time limit or a completion time deadline. Estimate how long you think a given task is going to take you and then set a timer. A lot of times when we set a task, we often don't have an end completion time in sight, at least in the near term. You may think something at work may be due on Friday, but there is no exact time limit that is more immediate, hard, and concrete that will drive you into that productivity mindset to get this thing done earlier than Friday. We don't have a near-term deadline in sight. Oftentimes we fall into a rabbit hole of procrastination and we don't actually recognize how much time we spend doing a given task. For me, for example, if I'm editing a video, I will give myself near-term time completion goal. I need to edit the first part of this video by the next hour, and I'll set a timer. The intention with this tip is to not actually always finish within that given time frame you gave yourself, but rather it's about putting yourself in the mindset of potentially being able to finish that task in that given amount of time and how productive you can be. This way, I find that I get a lot of different tasks done in different aspects of my life, whether it's skating, whether it's off-ice training, work, YouTube related. It gives me a little bit more structure into how I allocate my time across all the different activities that I have to accomplish in a given day. Number 4 is reframing your priorities. I'm sure you heard time management people say this a million times: prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. But what does that really mean? There is an art to how you prioritize in the most efficient way. And this little graphic that I will insert either here or here is super helpful to understand the different priority levels that most of our day-to-day tasks sit and fit into. We have tasks that are urgent and important, not urgent but important, urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important. Felt like I literally just read like a tongue twister or something. A lot of the time, especially as adults, we're conditioned by society to think that the only thing that fits into our quadrant 1 is our main job or our corporate job. However, I highly disagree with that narrative. I don't think it's a conducive way to find a good work-life balance. In order to have balance, you have to, in the first place life on the same level of priority as work, not just something that comes secondary to work. In my opinion, everyone should at least have 1 to 2 things on top of their corporate job that sits within that quadrant 1 that is equally as important to them and equally as urgent. For me, what sits in that quadrant is my corporate job, figure skating, and being a content creator on YouTube. I would, however, caution you that at any given time, try not to have more than 3 things in this quadrant, so your corporate job included in this count, or else you, my friend, will be super burnt out. I would say 2 is probably the optimal number. 3 is pushing it just a little. Imagine this for a second. Imagine if you prioritize your sport at the same level as your job or your career. How would that change your perspective? For me, I treat skating as a must-do in a given day, rather I will do if I have time. You start shifting the mentality, then you will start reframing how you think about your sport in your own head. For me, some of the things that sit in my quadrant 2 are things like volleyball and maintaining a strong relationship with my friends, my family, and my loved ones. These are the things that are important to me, but may not always be necessarily super urgent. These are more the steady state activities that you can actually plan for. For example, if I am particularly overwhelmed in a given week with my quadrant 1 activities, if work is super stressful, or if skating is really ramping up and I have nationals the following week, then it may not necessarily be smart to be making plans with friends that week. However, because my friends are still important to me in my life, I will still make sure that I make plans to see them the next week or the following week. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important, and to be honest, not many things I do really fall within this quadrant, but certain things that come to mind could be certain aspects of work and just regular chores. Do you think that delegate is the wrong word here? Because I feel like that is only an option available to the privileged. Rather, I think of this one as shared responsibility. A lot of the times at work, it is not always on you to do everything. If there is somebody that you feel like could help you or support you in completing your job, you should certainly ask for their support and help. Same goes with chores. Like, times laundry just needs to get done, or else I'm literally not going to have clothes to be able to go train for skating the following morning. See if it's possible to have a conversation to share that responsibility with someone in your life that can help you, if there is that option available. So maybe that's talking to a roommate, a significant other, your family, whoever is there. The people around you are there to help and support you and your goals and your dreams. Lastly is quadrant 4, and for me, things that sit in there are things like going out. These days I rarely go out because it pretty much essentially contradicts all of my goals. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and most importantly of all, I don't derive much joy from it. If it doesn't fit, then it just has to go. These things should no longer be in your life if it doesn't provide you any happiness at all. After watching this video, try drawing your own matrix and see where your day-to-day activities lie on this grid. Think about if you want to make an active choice in moving any one item from one quadrant to another. Lastly, tip number 5, mutual value creation. I know this sounds very consultant of me, but I promise it makes total sense. We need to think of our corporate jobs and the sports that we do as non-mutually exclusive. Tip is more of a mindset shift. Oftentimes we think that in order to do well in our jobs or to get that next promotion, we have to sacrifice things like training for our sports as athletes, or vice versa. I want to encourage you all to think of these 2 things as 2 things that can support each other rather than clash against each other. There are so many ways that I feel like being a competitive figure skater actually helps me be a better consultant. As a competitive figure skater, I'm often placed in high pressure, high stress environments at competitions where the environment is often something I've never seen before, and I have to perform and execute in front of these strangers and these judges that I've never met before in my life. Level of focus and being able to deal with a high pressure situation can show up immensely in any job, in any career. When I go to work, oftentimes I'm going in and presenting something to clients who are way senior in terms of tenure. I feel like I'm able to do that with a relative comfortable ease because I'm so used to being put in a high pressure environment where I have to perform. Beyond that, there are many other things that go without saying. Being an athlete trains discipline, work ethic, and plenty of other great traits that are highly valuable in the workforce. Just from a personal mental health standpoint, after I skate, I have already exercised for the day, I have already gotten up and moved my body, released some endorphins, and I'm ready to take on the day knowing that I have already accomplished something for me and something meaningful to me. The workday hasn't even started yet. And honestly, this is external as well. This is another great way to frame your communications to your team, your boss, your company, whoever you're trying to influence externally. Because now it's framed as not just something important to me and something that adds value to my life, but this thing also allows me to show up better for you every day in the workplace. It allows me to give you the best that I can offer, and it's ultimately something that can create value for your company as well. All right, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully this video was helpful. It was super requested by all of you guys, so for those who left comments, who answered to my Q&A response in my Instagram stories, thank you so much for all of that input. My goal every day is to aim to put on content that is informative to you all, is inspiring to you all, so I hope to continue to do that. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like more videos like this, and please comment down below on what you like to see from me next, because your idea may just be the next video that I make. Thank you guys so much again, and until next time, bye!
For your honey sickly sweet keeps me